For most Chinese people, the impression that the United States has given us over the years is that it will definitely intervene in Taiwan by force. But there are also many people who think the opposite is the case, because these people think that regardless of the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan province of China, how important is Taiwan to the United States? But this is Taiwan province of China after all, not the continental United States. Therefore, based on the consistent political habits of Americans, as long as the conditions are good enough, Taiwan can be used to exchange benefits or sell. As far as I am concerned, I think there may be three situations in which the United States is entirely possible to give up military intervention in the Taiwan issue. The first situation is that there are too many internal problems in the Pentagon. And China just chose a very vulnerable time for the United States to recover Taiwan. As a result, the internal conflicts in the US military cannot be resolved and Taiwan is ignored. Like recently on August 14th. The official website of the US Navy announced no new Chief of Operations appointed as Navy's Chief of Naval Operations retires. As a result, the US Navy's current supreme leadership is in a vacuum. And this vacancy is not just happening to the US Navy, US Army, and US Marine Corps now. That is to say, 3 of the 5 major branches of the US military are now leaderless. We can fully imagine how fierce the factional struggles in the US military are now. Even some media think that it has reached a messy situation. If this situation continues to ferment, it will inevitably affect the combat effectiveness of the US military. Of course, we are not saying that now we have to take this opportunity to quickly recover Taiwan. Rather, the current military system of the US military is not as perfect as many of us imagined. It is entirely possible that there is a great systemic risk, so if we can seize such an opportunity, the Pentagon is likely to ignore the use of military force to intervene in the Taiwan Strait issue. The second situation is that the Americans find it economically uneconomical to intervene in Taiwan by force. So they may also give up. In fact, as early as 2021, Russian President Putin put forward a point of view. At the press conference, a reporter asked Putin what? Will it help the People's Liberation Army attack Taiwan? Putin very formally stated that China does not need to use force to resolve the Taiwan issue. With China's current strength, it only needs to be achieved through the economy. Of course, Putin's words seem to us to be more or less optimistic. And we can also think that he is trying to avoid talking about whether the Russian army will support China's military actions by force. So it is said that there is no need for military action, so there is no problem of whether the Russian military supports it. But he did touch on a real problem. That is, once the war starts, it is a huge financial expenditure for the country. The US has to figure out whether to make money or lose money after the fight. If the United States wants to use force to intervene in Taiwan, it must settle economic accounts. And what is the current state of the American economy? We have also seen the US debt of $32 trillion. This snowball will definitely get bigger and bigger in the next few years. Earlier, the media exposed an email some US officials have proposed to the White House. If China can pay to increase its holdings of more than $1 trillion US debt, it is equivalent to give the US $1 trillion, then they will give up protecting Taiwan. For the Chinese, this kind of nonsensical statement does not have to be taken seriously no matter whether it is true or false or just for fun. Taiwan is China's territory. Whether it is reunification by force or peaceful means, the Chinese government will consider various issues in all aspects. But it doesn't have to be this way of spending money to buy. After all, the unification of the country is a legitimate thing. In the normal sense, it cannot be done as a business. But this view is widely circulated in the American political circle. At least it shows that in the minds of many Americans, the Taiwan issue can be settled economically. It doesn't mean that political correctness must be maintained. Of course, in the end, it may not be China that pays the United States. Because if the United States wants to intervene by force, China can also make you lose a lot of money and never get it back. Doesn't the United States make money if it doesn't intervene? And the third situation is that the United States finds that its allies in the Asia-Pacific region cannot support itself. Under such circumstances, the United States may also give up its military intervention in the Taiwan Strait issue. A few days ago, the allies of the United States in ambushes in the Taiwan Strait are mainly Japan and South Korea. On August 18, the United States, Japan, and South Korea will hold a summit at Camp David in the suburbs of Washington. The purpose is obviously to target China, but no matter how much the Japanese Prime Minister and the South Korean President want to take this opportunity to behave well in front of the big brother in the United States, they can get a share of the leftovers. But they also have to act according to the specific situation of their own country. In the past few days, there have been a series of threatening email incidents in South Korea. Japan, on the other hand, is facing rounds of protests over the issue of nuclear wastewater. These problems are precisely the concentrated reflection of the social problems in Japan and South Korea. It may be very difficult for the leaders of these two countries to divert the attention of the domestic people by creating international conflicts. Now both of them have an approval rating hovering in the 30s. In contrast, Putin has fought for more than a year and still has an approval rate of more than 70%. It can be seen how embarrassing the state of the two of them is now. Well, of course, this is still under the circumstance that the Chinese government has not played the economic card against Japan and South Korea. Once the Chinese government resorts to economic sanctions because of the Taiwan issue, then the people of Japan and South Korea will definitely feel the huge influence of China's economy quickly. At that time, everything will not be what Japan and South Korea think. And once the United States finds out that Japan and South Korea are wavering, it is not easy to say whether it will dare to confront the People's Liberation Army in the Taiwan Strait. Because judging from the war performance of the United States in these years, the United States is pursuing a premise to confront the Chinese People's Liberation Army. It is to use up the People's Liberation Army by its allies as dead ghosts first. Almost exhausted these allies, the Chinese People's Liberation Army should have consumed almost the same. At this time, the Americans come to harvest the spoils again, just like America did in World War II. However, it is uncertain whether Japan and South Korea, as allies of the United States, will go all out to start a war with China. In particular, South Korea has to face pressure from North Korea, and Japan has to face Russia over its territorial issues. These two countries are also friends of China. Therefore, many Chinese believe that if the above three situations happen, then there will be no major obstacles for the PLA to recover Taiwan.